you study formally?
Well, yeah, I went to Towson University and was a ceramics major down there, and graduated in 2001, and I started working at Elvis Pottery, which is in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
What kind of a place is that? Is that like a traditional?
Yep, very traditional. Pennsylvania Dutch, salt glazed stoneware. So I worked there for 10 years, and the first few years I just threw, and then after a while I would spray glaze or load kilns or anything really that had to be done there.
Right.
And then just happenstance, I ended up teaching at Westchester University. A friend of my old boss.
In Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia.
It's right outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He asked if I would come and teach for a semester, and I said sure. And I never really wanted to teach, but so I did, and I really liked it. And the students were pretty amazing. It's a small department, it's a liberal arts college, and John Baker, the department chair at the time, he was like, well, if you want to keep working here, you're going to have to get your MFA. And so I was like, sure, and I enrolled it right away.
And that's where you got your MFA?
At Towson.
Oh,
actually, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They don't
so
have
you have formal training, but it's interesting because you have this formal training, but your approach now is so
Well,
I don't want to say basic, but it's the wrong word. You know
I know what you mean.
It's like it's so informal or just direct.
Exactly. That's what I'm
It's like
going
back
for.
to basics. I kind of like direct.
Well,
And what is the black stuff?
It's acrylic paint mixed with water, and the main part of this has to do with documenting the process of growing. Now, generally,
did you say drawing?
Of documenting the process of growing. This is called
growing.
This is throwing. Yeah.
Oh, throwing. Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought you said drawing.
No, I guess technically I'm drawing, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
So generally, as a ceramic artist, we'll just fire our work, and that's how you document the process.
Right.
But for this, I was just trying to think of alternative methods for doing that, and the series started actually with small ink prints. So I was I was recycling paper in 6x6 squares, and then as I was finishing a bowl, I'll show you what I was doing. And one of the things I was really trying to do is to not do any embellishments to the process. So, but what I would do is I would cut my piece off, and then I would lift it off, and I would blot it on an ink pad.
Okay.
And then make a print of the bottom of the bowl.
Oh.
Okay. And
so each bowl had its own print.
Had its own print, and then I was binding them as a book.
Yeah.
So that whole process, I liked it, but it seemed excessive. It seemed excessive because I was adding all these steps that you don't necessarily do when you're throwing.
Right.
So I don't remember. Well, a jewelry professor, she told me, she was like, oh, why are you doing these prints? And she was like, that's extra.
Right.
She's like, you need to find a different way.
Right.
So I started throwing with ink, and that was a huge mess. And it was hard to get off my hands.
You get your fingernails, I know.
And then I got to just mixing acrylic paint with and they were the first paintings were.
So that is the imprint or the drawing or the understanding of the process, ingrained as a drawing on the piece. That's really cool.
And the first pieces were on canvas. And they were a little bit larger because I made a whole bunch of different kinds of wheels. The wheel that I was started with the canvas pieces was higher, and I would sit at it rather than kneel at it. And it made really large splash.
Yeah.
I mean,
is
twice as big.
Is this the drawing?
Well, I'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, sorry.
The canvas was usually about 5 by 6, so they were pretty fair sized paintings. And I think it goes back to like practicality. I think because I think a lot of ceramic artists are kind of practical by nature. And
well, you can say that about like any of the arts, like the textile designers, the jewelry, the like that where you come from this functional, and it's like form and function. Even like 3D designers,
Exactly.
It's that thing where it could be, and that's how most people understand it. They come to it and they see gold, maybe before they see art.
Yeah, agreed.
It makes sense.
But they were so big. These paintings were so big, and I was practicality. I was like, what the heck am I gonna do with these giant paintings? I had a whole bunch of them. So I just tried different ways to make them smaller, but they still kind of were depressing looking because it was just like canvas and black. And the black was kind of referencing these ink paintings I was doing at the time. But so I tried throwing with different colors also, like as my paint, but then they ended up being pastel, and I didn't really like it. It looked like spin art, And, it looked just like it.
Yeah, that's really funny. That's what it was. Well, that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, it was exactly what it was. Yeah, I know what it is too, but like I think the black is not as obvious as like a pastel.
Yeah, no, I didn't until you said spin art. That didn't even occur to me.
So I had bought this fabric from my mom, and it was like a Victorian pattern with it was like black and pink. And I had forgotten to give it to her. It was in my studio for a while, and this was maybe a year and a half ago, and I was thinking about how I can make these paintings less depressing, because they had this kind of because it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be a tribute to my time in production, and then also meditating on people. But coincidentally, as I used that fabric, I was thinking about my mom while I was doing it because I was on that fabric. And so when I was finished, I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. That's the way I should do this. So then I started, I went to Goodwills and was looking for fabrics that reminded me of people.
It's interesting that you went to like a place where it was used,
Oh, of course.
You could have gone to like a department store. Or
well,
whatever.
I think that's important for authenticity, like, and I like found objects anyway. But I was, picking fabrics out for people, and then, and I'm not heavy or deep like that, but meditating, because like when you're doing a repetitive process like this, it ends up being kind of meditative because you're sitting here and you're having a conversation, or you're thinking about the Orioles game last night or the Yankees game up here, right? But you're thinking about anything but the goal, about what you're doing, like knitting, a lot like knitting, and that's one of the things I really am looking for the bowls, because I keep one bowl for each piece, and because it's kind of this feudal
But wait, you're not gonna fire those?
No, I don't fire these.
The idea is that's really cool. So it's the process, so it's more pure. It's not like that's the byproduct, and this is the process. Oh, I like that.
The
That's
object
a really great
is
idea.
secondary to
that's
to
interesting.
the process.